Welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast, Season 3, Episode 49. And we are here, ladies and gentlemen. It's not real football, but it's real football. The Hall of Fame game is going on Thursday. Frank's guy, Kellen Mond, is leading off the Browns as they face the Jets, and I think Zach Wilson.
Starting, yeah.
So we do have football. It's not the football that we all want, but it's a little hit to satisfy our cravings. Anyway, though, I'll get us right into the news and notes. So the running back controversy has continued as now Jonathan Taylor, who is next up to get his contract, has gotten into it with Jim Irsay. Irsay basically said, look, if I die and Jonathan Taylor's out of the league, the NFL is still going to move on, which... well, maybe true. It might be true, but it's just a wild thing to say. Like, I don't know why you're saying that. So Jonathan Taylor has requested a trade. Who knows that the Colts then fought back, put him on the non-football injury list, which means they don't technically have to pay him. So it's a whole issue going on in Indianapolis. I've seen Deion Jackson, Evan Hull's stocks rise. Jonathan Taylor's taken a little bit of a hit. I think this is more so in fantasy football than dynasty fantasy football, though. But do you guys think this is something that actually extends into the regular season? Something that is a problem?
Yeah, 100%. Because I really don't think that Jonathan Taylor wants to go that Saquon route. I really don't think so. And Jonathan, especially because he has multiple years left on his deal still, so it's just a much more awkward scenario because of that, right? The Colts hold all the leverage because they can just kind of not play him, and there's really nothing Jonathan Taylor can do other than pout about it. They're not a contender, so what do the Colts really care, right? Like, because extending him with a juice deal, that hurts them in the future, most likely, right? That's the whole argument against the running back. So yeah, this is a messy scenario. I'm just wondering, do you guys think he actually gets dealt? I have a feeling he does get dealt.
I think next offseason is when it happens.
The difference is, though, when you have a guy like Austin Eckler requesting a trade, that's a super awkward situation for a team because it's like, he's still getting paid, I think, a little bit, but I'm pretty sure even if you traded for him, then you have to give him the contract. Jonathan Taylor, I think that there are teams that you can trade for him, but you won't have to do the long-term deal, right? If the Chiefs come knocking, if the Bills come knocking, I do think Jonathan Taylor just plays it out. Maybe they agree to not do like a 5th-year extension as part of the trade or something, but I have a feeling he gets dealt. I don't think he's playing for Indy another snap.
My guess is still eventually he ends up playing for Indy this season, and I think the same kind of situation comes up again next summer, and next summer is when he's dealt with 1 year left. There haven't really been like a ton of like trade rumors in terms of like actually like reported interest, not just like people saying like, oh.
No, I've seen interest. Apparently there are teams
offering. For the record, this is Jonathan Taylor's last year. He wasn't a first round pick. He doesn't have another year. This is Jonathan Taylor's last year.
So this is his last year?
Oh,
so it's a rental. Yeah.
Well, I guess you can still do the whole tag nightmare scenario that exists. The players really dropped the ball on that one, man, with letting that franchise tag drama and nonsense still exist.
Being able to do it 2 years in a row, yeah, I agree with you. So yeah, it's essentially, I mean, it can turn into 2 years easily with using a franchise tag. I don't think he gets moved just because of what you mentioned. He doesn't really have any leverage in this situation. Like I think the Colts, unless the team kind of just makes an offer where they're like, we have to take this, which I doubt is going to happen for a running back. I think they're just going to keep him, and because Jonathan Taylor, I don't know what kind of leverage he really has. I don't think the Colts are in like win now championship mode, obviously, with rookie quarterback, and they're not going to accept an offer unless it's like they're like, oh, we have to take this, which I don't see happening.
See, I think this is actually a smart move by Jonathan Taylor. We've seen it in the past where running backs wait till they get tagged to do this whole nonsense. You do it the offseason before. Therefore, when a team trades for you, you now basically get to see how this plays out. And I think it's gonna help him in the long run because teams are more willing to pay a running back now, knowing that, restructure this last year of his deal, add 2 years, 3 years on it, whatever the restructure ends up being. And you don't, and at the end of that deal, he's still only, 27 years old. He's still super young. So I think it actually helps him, and I think it's a page that a lot of running backs are going to use in the future, or like a strategy here is instead of holding out after you got tagged, hold out the year before they can actually do that. Now, where he ends up playing, because I agree with you, Frank. I think he's done it in Indy. I think he's sick of Jim Irsay. I think he just wants to play for a winning team, doesn't want to deal with a rookie quarterback. That team is not the same as it once was. So I just think they're going to move him. I think the Bills are an interesting situation. I think Miami is still an interesting situation. And on top of that, who else?
Or really, any contender can use a Jonathan Taylor type running back, right? I mean, this dude's a
right,
easy
but it's just I'm just trying to think
right
of teams that have the cap space because I don't think he's going to play without an extension, no matter where he goes.
Right.
I just think that's the point, is that you get him a year younger, and teams are more willing to give that extension now than after another year.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Well, I mean, the whole thing is Saquon really fucked Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
Of all running backs,
he
screwed. Yeah, but I think he really screwed Jonathan Taylor, because I think Jake is right there in that Josh Jacobs, at the end of the day, is in the same boat as Saquon. So he can go in there and just do what Saquon did. I get a 1 year, pretty darn good deal, or I just play on the tag, which it is a good chunk of change still, right? And you're just betting on yourself. These are good players. Jonathan Taylor has now, like, you don't want, if you're Jonathan Taylor, you're like 23, 24, 1 year left on your deal. Jake is completely right. You don't want to be forced to play on a 1 year deal now, and then the next year they tag you and you're in this 1 year deal scenario again. No.
Yeah.
Get some of that leverage back. Yeah, that's a really good point. Now I want to get into the backups. Is this a scenario where I imagine Deion Jackson might be on waivers in a handful of leagues? Evan Hull probably got picked up. I know they just signed a UDFA, who's like a pretty small dude.
They had Zach Moss until he broke his arm, but yeah.
I actually do think Zach Moss is the backup running back, but it gives these dudes a chance to earn playing time, especially early in the season. Are any of these guys worth targeting or worth the roster spot, whatever the price of admission is?
They're worth the roster spot for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, going out and trading for them?
No. And I think kind of like similar to if Anthony Richardson is starting right away, whichever running back you own, you're going to be annoyed at the lack of goal line touchdowns that the running back gets.
I don't even think just lack of goal line. I think lack of touches in just general. I think they're going to use him in a lot of design runs and stuff, especially if Jonathan Taylor's not the guy behind him, right? If you're handing the ball to Jonathan Taylor, that's a lot different than handing the ball to Deion Jackson, whether the Colts want to admit it or not. So I think they're just going to design run with their rookie quarterback that has a good set of legs himself.
Yeah, so what I find fascinating about this scenario is whether or not the Colts end up landing one of these free agent running backs, either at this point or you give a little bit of time for a preseason game or two to get rolling and they get a better look at a guy like Evan Hull who's never played, and that UDFA never played for them, to see if, okay, maybe we have something, and if it's really a disaster, then we bring one of these dudes in. I think Deion Jackson is just not good enough. I don't think
he's good. Yeah,
he's the type of dude. I just don't think he's going to be on an NFL roster in a year from now. Maybe like a practice squad situation.
I mean, I think Zach Moss is the guy to have, even though he's hurt right now. I guess the rookie is.
Dude, Zach Moss looked good at the end of last year too.
Oh, he did. I think he's the most talented running back on that roster, not named Jonathan Taylor. And then I guess the rookie would be the second most valuable, just because like still a little bit of an unknown. Because Deion, I agree with you with Jackson. He's literally just like a jag.
I just don't see any of these guys being worth.
It's going to be a committee.
I side with Jake.
Which is also the annoying part.
Because at the end of the day, either Jonathan Taylor ends up playing at least the majority of the season, in which case these guys go back to being nothing, or they bring in another veteran running back, whether it's Kareem Hunt, whether it's Zeke, whether it's
Leonard Fournette.
Leonard Fournette. They're going to bring in somebody else, and then these guys again go back to being nothing. And if they don't bring in anybody, they're going to split this backfield 5 different ways between Anthony Richardson's legs himself and all the guys we just named that are in the backfield, and none of them are going to be fantasy relevant in the first place. Mm-hmm. So am I trading for these guys? No. Am I rostering them? Sure, fine. As a, worst case scenario kind of move, but at the end of the day, I think they're just roster cloggers.
I will say another point too is that this offense might be a bottom 10 offense in the league this year, especially the first half of the season. So that's another factor going against these running backs.
Yeah, especially if they throw Richardson into the fire week 1, which I'm saying this is a Richardson guy. He's not going to be good as a rookie. The entire point of drafting him is he's going to take a little bit, but you're drafting him for a ceiling. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season, because I think it's going to be running back by committee, if Richardson has the most rushing fantasy points between rushing yards and rushing touchdowns between anyone on that roster.
So I think the actionable move, now I traded Evan Hull in one of my leagues for a third. I got offered it. I didn't think I would be able to fetch a third for any of these backup Colts guys, but considering that got done, I actually am siding with JT and Jake here. I'm probably just going to mass offer these dudes out for a third. The only guy I'm thinking about is what's his name, Zach Moss, and it's risky because, dude, you're able to get potentially a third for a dude who is basically been worthless for the past couple years, right? But man, he actually could be decent if you're a team that's a little thin at running back. He's just a nice guy to have, but I don't know, that's tough. To pass up on gaining value from a dude who's just been pretty bad since you drafted him. What's going on, Skull? How you doing, dude? Made a couple of trades recently. Yeah, paste him in the chat. We'll give our thoughts on him. Good to see you, dude.
All right, I'm gonna move us on. Other quick, just one hitter news and notes. Tim Patrick did end up tearing his Achilles. That's back-to-back years with injuries for Tim Patrick. Season-ending injuries sucks. He's
in training camp.
Yeah, he's actually been pretty good when he plays too. He could have been the second wide receiver for this team.
And according to all the beat reporters too, he's like that hard-working dude, right? That first in, last out kind of guy. So that really sucks. Also, KJ Hamler had that heart condition, which led him to being waived by the Broncos. So that has created a ton of hype for a man that JT likes named Marvin Mims. And in one of my leagues, I saw Mims in a second fetch a first-round pick.
Ooh.
So what are we thinking about this Mims scenario here? Is he going to be this wide receiver too and kind of usurp Courtland Sutton, who had a really down year last year?
I was about to say I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
I still think in his rookie season, you're going to need to see some things break more. I mean, it's been breaking entirely Marvin Mims away so far, kind of due to unfortunate circumstances. Yeah, but he was in a tough situation to begin with, a really tough situation. I wasn't too concerned about KJ Hamler. Tim Patrick, I was. But at the end of the day, he was still going to be behind Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. And to get either of those guys, their targets, I don't think Marvin Mims is a this year play. I think if you're expecting anything and then a handful of points from Marvin Mims this year, I think you have kind of lofty expectations. That being said, Judy's contract is coming up. I think Courtland Sutton is extended, right? So I don't know when his contract ends.
It's almost like when you can get out of it more so than when it ends.
Yeah. So there should be an opportunity soon for Marvin Mims, but this is not the year that I'm expecting Marvin Mims to be producing. I'm not expecting a big rookie season from him. And if I do see it, that's a happy surprise, but I'm not going to go out and trade for Marvin Mims just yet. I think.
Would you think about selling him? I think the Marvin Mims at a second for a first is a little bit of an overpay.
That
You're
trade
able to
I'd
pull that
100% do. But I'll pull up some Marvin Mims trades if we want to just look at them, and then
Sure.
like 3 or 4 we could do real quick.
Yeah, and real quick, while you're bringing that up, we can look at Skull's trades. All right, one quarterback, start 8, traded Jahmyr Gibbs, Geno Smith, and Elijah Moore for Waddle and Pickett. I think personally you lost a little bit of value there, but you get the upside of Pickett.
It's one QB though, so it's basically it's Gibbs and Elijah Moore for Waddle, which I don't
say that trade one more time.
Yeah, so I mean, JT boiled it down to Gibbs and Elijah Moore for Waddle. But then the same league, he traded Elijah Mitchell for 2 seconds, which I think is a huge overpay for Elijah Mitchell right now.
Especially in the start 8.
I like Gibbs and Elijah Moore. I think I would probably take Waddle though. I'd take the Waddle side on that.
10-team Superflex. I traded 102 and a third for Sun God. I think I really like Amon-Ra this year.
Oh, 10-team is weird because how does that affect the cube? Man, why are you in all these weird 10-team things?
In 10-team leagues, the quarterback situation's not as. I'm in one 10-team league, and I have like Mahomes, Kyler, Tua, and somebody else. I have like everybody, but that's also because I just stocked up on the quarterbacks and startups.
Well, so in that kind of format, in your opinion, because you've played in it, I have no idea. Is someone like Gibbs or JSN now being, in your eyes, picked ahead of a Stroud, a AR-15, a whoever you dislike the most out of these quarterbacks this year? Are you now picking those guys easily over the QBs?
I'm in a 10-team. I saw Gibbs go 3. It was Bijan, Bryce, then Gibbs, and then Richardson.
In the 10-team I went, it was Bijan, AR, and then Gibbs, followed by JSN. I think JSN went 4 in that league as well. So Bryce and Stroud both fell to 5 and 6 respectively. So yes, the quarterbacks are slightly less valuable just because there's less teams and you can still only start 2. It's the same idea as always with availability and all that kind of stuff. You still have to have 2 good ones. I think what it really prevents is people from starting the bad ones, right? You're not starting Skylar Thompson. No one has that issue. The worst quarterback starting is still Brissett or something like that. You're not searching for Jarrett Stidham for 1 week or something like that. So it's more depth at quarterback, which devalues him a little bit, but it's still important.
And then the other was he traded Lance for Mixon. Again, it was super flex, but I just think the upside. Well, we'll get to Lance later, I think. But I was.
He traded Trey Lance for Joe Mixon.
10-team super flex.
That's a tough one. I'm sorry on that one, Skull. That's a tough one.
Well, Mixon might be really good. The thing is, I kind of agree with you guys. I would have rather, if possible, probably traded Lance in a separate trade and then trade for Mixon. I think you might have been able to get a better deal on that. But dude, I will say Mixon seems to be a little bit undervalued right now. I think he got hit a little too hard from the reports. Like, yeah, he is an asshole, but
I feel like a big part of it is a lot of people know this is, at least unless I misread reports, this is probably his last year in Cincinnati. And he's getting older. They've kind of been using PI more. So I think he could have a good year this year, but it might be one of those where it's like you're trying to sell him right now because this time next summer, his value is not going to be close.
All right, you guys, real quick, ready for? I'll do like 3 or 4 Mims trades.
Sure.
These all have happened in the past 2 days, or past day actually. So the Tim Patrick news and KJ Hamler news had dropped when these people make these trades. So we have Marvin Mims and 24 second for Jameson Williams. We have Marvin Mims for Dalvin Cook straight up. Marvin Mims for Antonio Gibson straight up. And we have Marvin Mims and a 2024 third for Jonathan Mingo.
For Jonathan Mingo.
I will in a couple of those trades. He's priced at an early second right now. Because that Jameson, that's another basically, what's his name, Mims in a second for a first. Because I think you could get a first for Jameson Williams. You mass offer it out.
Shadrock
Lounis is in your league.
Mims in each of those except the JMO one. I might agree there. Jameson, I just don't.
I'm not in on Jameson Williams. I'm sorry.
Picking up Dalvin Cook for Marvin Mims as a contender. That's one of those trades where it could definitely look bad a couple years from now, but man, it could really help out for this year if you're a contending team. Like that's a championship type move.
Skull said, I like Gibson, been trying to get him. It's hard though. I agree. I've been trying to get Antonio Gibson too. Because it seems like he's supposed to be cheap, at least the cheapest that he's been recently. But trying to get Antonio Gibson has not been easy for me.
I think it's a similar scenario to a Damian Harris, where on the keep trade cuts and the whatnot, he's worth 1/3, but you have to give 2/3, and even some of those are getting rejected.
You're not gonna. I feel like most leagues you have to do like a second for a third swap. That's just what it is.
I think he might be worth even more than that, if we're being honest.
But I think, man, I don't know, because I can understand the hype around the Commanders' offense, but I almost feel like Gibson has gotten so much hype that it might be worth selling him now.
Gibson gets so much hype every offseason.
Correct.
It's just what it is.
Well, it's just the thing about him is he was a 1,000-yard rusher last year, I'm pretty sure, who has pass catching ability, but he just hasn't put the two together. And it's kind of like, I think it's like Mike Williams, right? Where Mike Williams, 1 year he'll catch a bunch of touchdowns, the next year he'll go for a bunch of yards, but he just hasn't put the two together. And so if you could hit that magic spot and get both of them together, like you have a really good player. But otherwise, it's just, it's an okay kind of guy. Like it's not great. So you don't feel good giving up more than a second, a mid to late second, I'd say.
Stats wise, he has been pretty fantastic. He's definitely, when you just pull up his Pro Football Reference, you would expect him to be a somewhat like highly valued player.
Skull said he's their best RB, but they don't like him. I think that might be true. I'm not as high on Brian Robinson as some of you are. But all right, I'm gonna keep us moving along because we already spent enough time on that news. We got Camp Hype. Rapid fire, you guys tell me if you want to stop at anyone. Calvin Ridley's first on our list. He's back from his suspension. He's looked very good allegedly. I forget who they're saying. I think it was Zay Jones. Someone said, "Do you see Zay Jones go through the route?"
On that video, yeah. And Calvin Ridley was one of the best route runners in the league last time he was playing.
It's also really not Zay Jones's game, that type of route, too. Yeah. Like, he's a vertical strider kind of player. Yeah. That being said, Calvin Ridley was a good buy last year. I think this hype has kind of gotten to him pretty fair value for him. And yeah, I think the Jags offense is going to be a pretty darn good offense this year. So I think it's all fair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This one, I don't think a whole lot of. I think it was just a really cool catch. Jason Brownlee.
Well, he's one of the top trending players. I've seen a lot of people pick him up. You guys think he's worth a roster spot?
Sure.
That's such a crowded offense already. I don't know. Until I see it in real games.
It really depends on the roster. Like, I'm not rushing.
There'd have to be a lot of there'd have to be a lot of.
Let's just compare him to some of the other like top risers on that other people are picking up on Sleeper right now. Let me pull up who the trending up players are. So Deion Jackson, I think I might rather have Jason Brownlee just because of things said before.
I'd rather Deion Jackson.
Kenny McIntosh, he's another we should probably have in the Camp Hype rookie report.
That's because Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker are both dealing with injuries. I still think I don't really like Kenny McIntosh, if being honest, but I don't care for Jason Brownlee. So I guess Kenny
McIntosh screams of Chris Carson to me. In this Seattle
you think he's going to be? No.
I'm telling you,
Chris
Kenny
Carson was different because we didn't see Penny in the NFL yet. Like they were both like the same rookie class. Kenneth Walker, we've already seen, and he's good.
I'm telling you, Kenneth Walker's hurt, and I'm hearing. I heard it's not great, not a great injury. If he misses a lot of camp and potentially early season, and McIntosh gets rolling, we've seen Pete Carroll is not afraid to ride the hot hand. And I just think, do I think Kenneth Walker is much more talented? Yes. But I also thought Rashad Penny is more talented than Chris Carson. But Chris Carson ended up being the back for that team for 4 seasons, 5 seasons, whatever it was. So, and we know Pete Carroll does not give 2 shits about draft capital. It's whoever's the better player right now. So
So I agree with you on that, with the not caring about draft capital, and I do think with a running back versus wide receiver and what's happening currently, I would rather Kenny McIntosh over Jason Brownlee. But on a similar note, Demario Douglas, who's 5th on this trending, I'd also rather have than Jason Brownlee because that wide receiver room is bad with the Patriots, right? And Demario Douglas is getting time running with the ones. Demario Douglas is playing with the ones currently. It's some mixture of Juju, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton, and then Demario Douglas is in there as well. And from what I've seen from Tyquan Thornton, who had maybe 2 or 3, I'd say, flashy plays last season, I don't really think he's all that great so far. Kendrick Bourne's kind of just whatever. I do think, and we've seen it in the past with Julian Edelman, Jacoby Myers, name all these other guys who've come through the Patriots ranks of like not being drafted or late round picks to being good. I think Demario Douglas fits that mold. So that's someone I've been having my eye on and picking up in a couple of leagues.
Agreed. I'd rather have Douglas over and McIntosh over Brownlee. One thing I will say about McIntosh, though, it's not really Kenneth Walker I'm looking at. It's Zach Charbonnet, because we're talking about a rookie that's missing pretty vital camp time, who was supposed to be the pass-catching back. I think that McIntosh is wildly better than the DJ Dallases that they have and the other rando McMando pass-catching backs that they pick up. So that's where I think it could be interesting. Not that he's going to be like this nasty player, but dude, you might be able to pick up a little like Tevin Coleman-y type of almost like Elijah Mitchell-esque production this year for, I mean, you may have already had to have picked him up, but McIntosh might not be in waivers in your league, but you never know.
I think Charbonnet's the one more in danger. Yeah, I agree with you.
So it sounds like we're more so Brownlee not worth the roster spot.
Correct.
It was a cool catch, but
yeah. Well, speaking of cool catches, George Pickens. He
had a cool catch. He had a cool catch.
That was fucking insane.
I just love Skull in the chat though. These wide receivers don't matter. Roster running backs.
I kind of agree in that instance. Like you need so many things to break your way for Brownlee to be ever worth anything. Whereas Kenny McIntosh, you already kind of have it. So yeah. But yeah, George Pickens, sick catch. Is there any other George Pickens news though, or is that just that?
He's just been making sick catches.
Well, he has that one. He had another good rep 1-on-1 against Patrick Peterson where he cooked him. He's saying kind of, now people are saying it's a Claypool move, but he's the best receiver in the NFL and that he should get the ball more. I mean, has this recent hype kind of propelled George Pickens for any of you?
I mean, I'm the Pickens guy. I was always high on Pickens. I think people are starting to see how good he is. I don't know if it propelled him to me because I already had him ranked higher than most. But with that being said, I think it's just continuing to show how much of an absolute freak athlete this guy is. If he can get his head on straight, I think there's nothing stopping this guy from being one of the better wide receivers in the National Football League.
I think he easily has the talent to. It's just mostly been a consistency thing for me because I mean the special catches, like and by the way, I like George Pickens because it's the insane catches. Like we've known he can do that. Remember his rookie year one? I think it was against the Browns.
Oh yeah, that one-handed catch. Yeah,
dude, he had like a handful last year that were fucking insane.
Yeah, so this doesn't like change. But I like him a lot though. It's just more so waiting on consistency. Because they'll
Would you
have games where
rather-
he makes that insane catch, and then games where he's like kind of like not as really relevant at all.
Are you keeping Pickens if someone offers you a random first?
Yes.
This year, yes. I don't like the late first as much this year, or I guess like 6.
I've turned down first for George Pickens.
If I got offered 108, I think I'd keep Pickens.
It would have to be a very good pick from a team that you think is very bad.
I'm
I would
taking
need-
it first.
I would need like 106, I think.
I think Pickens just makes really cool catches, but you don't get extra points for the catch being really cool.
Yeah, that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
I think there's
So-
like that's what I've seen that analysis so often on Twitter and
What's his
Reddit
name,
and
Matt?
all these. I don't remember his name, but like that's like the number one thing going around about George Pickens right now is that he makes all the cool catches, but you know what's really cool? Getting open. And I'm like,
I don't
yeah.
care about getting open. I don't care about getting open. I care about targets and I care about points. And George Pickens is just not as good as Deontay Johnson. And so I think he's the second best wide receiver on that
Dude,
team.
Shadrach is so right. Issue is he's running cardio routes in the Matt Canada faux offense. Dude, I'm pretty sure he ran a vertical route on like 60% of his plays or something ridiculous. Like the dude is just running up and down the field every fucking play.
I'm going to move us off Pickens, though, and move us on to Brandon Aiyuk, who is someone that I've actually been seeing tons of camp hype from.
Yeah.
Where he's just been dominating these targets for the 49ers. Doesn't matter what quarterback's throwing to him. He's just catching them. He's scoring the touchdowns for this team. He's just always open, making sick catches. There's a whole highlight reel of just his training camp catches already. Like he's high pointing the ball and everything. I think this is primed to be a very good year for Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, I think
don't
it's
think it-
justified.
I don't think anyone's gonna fight you here on that one.
Okay,
I
Brandon
think
Aiyuk
the thing
is
is though, Brandon Aiyuk, even with the hype, I still think is potentially undervalued.
Do you
Which is
think,
kinda crazy.
he enters like that tier of like Devontae Smith, T. Higgins?
See, here's the weird thing. I don't know,
think he does,
but
think
I
he's,
know
right
for
below
sure
that.
he has the talent. I don't think that there's a huge talent difference between T. Higgins and what's his name and
Aiyuk.
Brandon Aiyuk, or Amon-Ra St.
Mhm.
Brown and Brandon Aiyuk. I
Amon-Ra.
personally, now this is where I get a little crazy. You put Aiyuk in Amon-Ra's position, all of a sudden Aiyuk is putting up crazier numbers just because of the mouths to feed problem, limiting his total upside.
I actually don't disagree with you.
the thing about Aiyuk is so he's currently wide receiver 27 on Bulletproof, right? Outside of the top 10 wide receivers, who I'm just going to ignore, who are already in there, right? And rookie wide receivers, who there's only like 3 or 4 in there. I think he has the best chance of breaking into that top 10. Like I think, other than the rookie wide receivers who might like Quinn Johnson, Jordan Addison, JSN, Zay Flowers, I think he has a better chance than Zay Flowers, but they're rookies, so they shoot up higher. Brandon Aiyuk has the best chance of established veterans of breaking into that top 10, and he's currently wide receiver 27.
And I also think he's just been improving over the course of his career, right?
Mhm.
You look at a guy like Stephon Diggs, who came into the league a little bit raw. Aiyuk, a much better prospect than Diggs was. I just think we've seen the guy continually improve. He's now kind of become like a route technician, Brandon Aiyuk, on top of the fact that he's great with the ball in his hands, on top of the fact that he can go over you and catch the ball. It's just annoying that he's in a good, bad situation. He's in a good situation for that. He's a really safe player. You know, he's going to be probably putting up like 1,000, 1,100 yards, decent amount of touchdowns and some carries. But it's just too many people for him to be that 1,400 yard guy that I honestly think he has the talent to be.
Mhm.
So, and yeah, and honestly, Shadrach brings up a good point. I am a little bit nervous if Purdy's the starter too, of being a consistent 300 yard type passer that this offense kind of deserves and should have. And
Which is a shame because I don't think Purdy's ever going to be that type of quarterback.
I don't know.
We're
Dude,
talking like
quarterback is a position
300,
where
like
you can
300 consistent.
we'll get to that. I have thoughts on these 49ers.
I mean, because
we're almost there.
Like, you pull up even like the games he played well in last year. Like,
We'll get to the 49ers QBs in a second.
Season. See how many yards he had over. See how many games he had over like 220 passing yards.
Let's just get through Darren Waller and then one other person, and then we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He's been like the most targeted, I think, by far, right?
On the Giants, yeah.
On the Giants.
Yeah, Darren Waller's apparently been just like unguardable at Giants camp. They had to pull him from red zone drills because he was just scoring like 5 touchdowns in a row.
Yeah, Daniel Jones on like only throwing all the ball.
Yeah, so Darren Waller, if he stays healthy, is going to be a target hog in this offense, it seems like. I don't think it's really surprising to anyone just because that Giants receiving room is not good. I like Isaiah Hodgins. I like Darius Slayton. They're nice players, but they're not even in the same stratosphere as Darren Waller in terms of talent level. I just think as long as he's healthy, he's in for a ginormous season. I don't know what his cost is right now personally, but like
Probably
if you're a contending team that needs a tight end, I think you should just go get Darren Waller. He's not a guy that's going to cost you a first like Kyle Pitts or Mark Andrews or Kelsey even at this point. And I think he could be right in that conversation. He's going to put up probably 900 yards, 10 touchdowns, have a really nice year for you. And I just think it's an easy buy.
Yeah, it's kind of been interesting with Waller. There are some people, I think even Frank's in the camp, who just think he's washed in general. I think it's only been an injury thing for him. I think when he's healthy, you've called him washed multiple times.
Yeah, I have. And I'm going to stick with it until I see that motherfucker put up 100 yards.
I'm on Jake's side where, like, the only concern is just staying healthy because I think when he's on the field, he's going to be really productive this season.
All right, catching up in chat. Skulls for Aiyuk. Shadrach is off Aiyuk. Skull loves the oh, thanks. Yeah, I meant to get this for our draft. Then it came a week late, so now I'm just wearing it now. Zay Flowers has better QB and way less competition. Maybe true, but Zay Flowers, I just don't think is.
Dude, do you
great.
see this message? Shouldn't be hard to put up numbers on the Giants defense. Can't name a single dude in that secondary.
I mean, fair.
Xavier McKinney, come on. Come on.
Yeah, fair. Look, I still think all those wide receivers are not great. I think Darren Waller is that trusty guy. I believe it.
Oh my god.
All right, let's move to camp not hype, and we'll start off with Lounis's guy, Jameson Williams. I heard he dropped, similar to what they were saying about Quinn Johnston, he was dropping a bunch of passes, but we haven't really seen any highlights from Jameson Williams this training camp. What's the panic meter at, Lounis, considering that he's also going to be starting off the season not playing?
I'm more so still annoyed about the suspension. The drop thing doesn't really concern me. Because whether you're in or out on him, I don't think like a tweet saying like, oh, he dropped 2 passes should really get you on or off any receiver. Never mind like him specifically. And then the punch, I mean, it was stupid, but it's whatever.
That's what I'm more concerned about, though. It's just the.
I mean, because apparently it happened right after like the 2 drops. So
right, but
it was kind of just.
It's almost like, you know, you got suspended, right? You did that, you know, you. It just because maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit, but like it's a little bit different if you're like
receiver being emotional is surprising.
No, but it's like, dude, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. Like, earn it a little bit. Kind of like, you know, Aiyuk, his rookie season was kind of a little bit of a shithead, and Shanahan was like, dude, I'm not going to play you then. Like, grow up. This is the NFL. Yeah, Jameson Williams might need a little bit of that.
I mean, again, wide receiver being emotional is the most surprising thing. The drops thing I saw, I haven't seen a whole. I saw there was a tweet where like someone was saying like he absolutely was like cooking Gardner Johnson on.
Dude, it's first week of training camp. Like, who cares about fucking drops? How many times do we need?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, all right, hold on.
My thought. So I'm still in on Jameson Williams. I still kind of stay on my pre-draft stance that him and Garrett Wilson are going to be the 2 best rookie wide receivers from that draft class.
Buddy, you can't put them in the same sentence right now. I'm sorry.
Did you hear the sentence? I'm putting more so him and Olave against each other. Than Garrett Wilson.
Still. You're talking about two top 10 dynasty wide receivers right now.
Jamo's not better than Drake London or Chris Olave.
Oh, I forgot about London. I mean, again, that was my. We haven't really seen him have a chance, and
it doesn't matter. The point is you can't put him in the same sentence right now just because he's had a very mediocre rookie season when he was on the field. He's suspended again. He's having issues. What?
He was barely on the field.
That's my point.
He was coming back from an ACL tear.
And then when he played, he was very mediocre. And now he's suspended. And
the suspension is
causing fights. Like, it's one of those things where exactly what Frank said is like, you could be super talented in the world, but if you're a shithead, and these NFL teams just don't bother with you. We've seen it in the past before, whether it's Josh Gordon, Martavis Bryant, all these guys that were very good, and then just out of the league instantaneously because they're not good people. Well, right? And then you see guys that stick around forever just because they're good locker room guys. If you're not going to earn the respect of the veterans in the locker room of the coaching staff, you're going to be gone. And I think Jameson Williams is getting dangerously close to that point. I don't care what they traded for you. At some point, they're going to cut bait. I am worried about Jameson Williams. I am not touching the man with a 10-foot pole.
I think you're heavy on the panic meter right now. I don't
that's
think
an overreaction to a tweet about him punching a teammate.
Yeah.
And 2 drops.
Well, it's not just that. It's just the suspension and an injury, and I'm sure he's going to come back and he's.
Him being injured makes you think like it's like, oh, he's I mean, yeah, the injury's like.
I mean, like tearing an ACL to start your career is not great.
The injury happened before he was even in the NFL.
Yeah,
no, I know that, and that's my point. Is just like he's playing on a not 100% knee, and now you're right. He's down 2 years, almost 2 years removed. I just think Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra broke out. I think Amon-Ra became everything they wanted Jameson Williams to be.
Oh, they're two drastically different receivers.
Yeah, Amon-Ra's
in terms of style,
in terms of production, in terms of who's going to put up yardage and touchdowns and be the number one guy on your offense, he became that guy that they drafted Jameson Williams to be. Yes, there are two different players. One's a field stretcher. One's more of a route technician guy. I know that, but if I am the Jameson Williams roster, I am concerned. I would take a first-round pick and re-roll every single time. And it's just what it is, especially because if you can get a guy that's, not the consensus top 2 team in the league, right? And a guy that could be pick, 6 to 8 or 6 to 10, like that pick is going to be good, especially with the draft class coming in next year. It's a deep quarterback draft. It's a deep running back draft on top of 2, what people consider generational receivers in Marvin Harrison and Ibuki, whatever is the other Ohio State guy.
That was not how you say it.
Marvin Harrison.
I don't know how you say it. So it just get rid of him. And if he turns out to be good, fine. I'm just going to be the guy that takes that chance on a new pick and moving on.
Look, I agree. I don't agree with the panic. I agree with the reroll though.
I wouldn't do the reroll. I mean, mostly just because I feel like if you liked him, nothing besides the suspension being fucking annoying. And like dumb of him, not like by the NFL. Nothing has really made me like kind of change my opinion of him talent wise. And so I feel like if you believed in him, you believe in him. If you're out on him, you're out on him. A tweet was saying he dropped 2 passes and punched some random like backup corner.
So my take really quickly, because I think I'm kind of in the middle of everyone. I agree with the random first, just because the random first is so safe that it's like, I'm willing to pass up on the upside because of how risky Jameson Williams' profile is right now. That being said, I'm still kind of with Lounis in that, dude, 1 year ago, Jameson Williams is in this a tier above guys like Olave and Jahan Dotson and whatnot. I'm not forgetting what he showed at Alabama and how much talent this guy has. Yeah, he's a little immature, but dude, if I can trade DeAndre Swift, Geno Smith, maybe even like a Kenny Pickett. Now that's a little weird because of Kenny Pickett's upside, but like potentially a J.K. Dobbins straight up for Jameson Williams. Dude, I would like to do some of those trades because I still think that Jameson Williams has the talent to really shine.
I think he's a buy because of kind of the offseason panic that's happened. If he was in this year's draft, I'd probably take him 107. After the 3 QBs, Gibbs, Bijan, and JSN.
I think that's pretty fair, right? Just in that crop of those
Addison
4
before
receivers.
him.
that
I
went
would
around
take
there.
him. I would take him ahead of Addison and Quentin Johnson. Last time we saw him play in college, he was better than both of those guys.
I think
I
realistically,
mean,
he goes.
Addison won the Bolitnikoff his last year in college. What are you talking about?
I think Jameson, his last year at Bama, was better than any year Addison had. Jameson was nice.
I mean, they're both nice. They're both nice. The one thing though, I just wish Jameson was a little cheaper, just a smidge, right? Like half a round, and
he's gonna get cheaper once he's not playing the first couple weeks of the season. I still think you have a pretty decent buy window if you want to get him.
y'all will move him for a 24 late first. I'd want to do kind of like what Jake was saying, where it's more so like a potential playoff team sort of a thing, right? Because if you're trading him to the clear contender, that's a little bit of a different story to where you're just kind of trading him to a playoff hopeful. I think generally speaking, those playoff hopeful type trades, it's just worth it. Even if Jameson Williams hits, right? Like that first round pick, I can turn around and still get a wide receiver too if I need one for my dynasty team. But the one thing I will say, I want Jameson Williams to be priced more where Zay Flowers is and not where, like Jake is saying, Addison and Quentin Johnson. That's kind of my issue right now and why I'm not buying him. I'd rather just buy Zay Flowers. I'd rather buy Deontay. Probably even Christian Kirk if I'm a contender. Yeah, I'll forego the upside, but I get a guy who was a top 12 receiver last year on offense, probably going to be better. So
that's fair. I'm buying him for a late first if I can get him for a late first.
See, the thing is, though, Shadrach, is that even if it is a late first, right, it's not that 112 is a little annoying. 111, it's draft dependent. Anything other than that, it's a good pick. You can sell that for pretty darn good value.
Yeah, I mean, Kincaid's probably, 110 this year?
Yeah.
And he's going right about where Jameson Williams is going. And I feel like this was a little bit weaker in terms of wide receivers. Or at least like you didn't have the top tier talent pushing the wide receivers down further. So
all right, let's push along here because we gotta get to the over unders.
Right, give me 2 minutes to cook here.
Let him
2 minutes to cook. So other news is the 49ers quarterback battles, which we've talked about extensively on this podcast. And I'm here to say what you're reading on Twitter and what we're seeing is just wrong. It's just wrong. Maybe you could put a tinfoil hat on me, call me conspiracy JT, but look, these people, and this is going to be offensive, and I'm normally unbuttoned up, but beat writers are dumb. Okay, that's just it. Beat writers are dumb. They're not doctors, they're not lawyers, they're beat writers for a reason. And I'm sitting here on a podcast with a couple of viewers from my ivory tower just saying that, but they're dumb. And we have people like Mike Silver saying that Trey Lance should be cut because that will make room for Brandon Allen and they can't get a trade for him. That's just not true. We all have David Lombardi, who's just carrying water for the 49ers, saying, oh, Brock Purdy, people are saying Brock Purdy didn't have a good game because he fumbled a bunch and got sacked a bunch of times and had a couple dropped interceptions, but he made some good throws. Trey Lance has been very good this training camp. I've been watching all of the clips. I've been watching everything. Trey Lance has been very good. There's been one viral clip of Trey Lance from a month ago that just started surfacing today where he overthrew a 5'6" guy, a 5'6" wide receiver coach. That's fine. All right, I'll take the tinfoil hat. So we are getting crazy. We're at a time though when people are saying Brock Purdy is the set in stone starter. Like, oh, is it time to finally accept Brock Purdy as the starter? And people are just completely forgetting that Brock Purdy was not good last year. The 49ers just were. He had a bunch of dropped interceptions last year that he got lucky with. At some point, the luck is going to turn. Brock Purdy's mechanics are not great. The dude takes forever to get the ball out of his hands. He has a crazy windup, and especially now with his surgery, like Brock Purdy is not good. Trey Lance at least is someone that could be developed. He's younger than Brock Purdy, right? Trey Lance is still only 23. When Joe Burrow started in the NFL, he was 23. Okay. To be fair, that dude was clowned by like every Niners beat reporter. Some. The other one I'm talking about, Dave Lombardi, was not clowned by beat reporters. He's like one of the head beat reporters. So where I'm going with this, though, is Trey Lance, they gave up 3 firsts. Now, whether or not you want to say, oh, Kyle Shanahan actually thought Mac Jones was supposed to be the guy or whatever, and John Lynch went against him, whatever. This team has invested a ton in Trey Lance, right? People think Trey Lance is good. We have never before seen a quarterback only play like one game and 2 halves of the NFL and then just disappear, right? Whether or not he's going to be starting for the 49ers or another franchise, Trey Lance is going to be starting games in the NFL, and he is super cheap. Now, I think the 49ers would be ridiculously dumb to just roll forward with Brock Purdy over Trey Lance, but maybe they are. Maybe they are dumb. So Trey Lance will be on some other team, though, because some team's going to get desperate enough for Trey Lance to be on that team. And when we see Trey Lance play with a team, he is going to be very good, at least at scoring points. All right. And at the price he's at now, where he's steadily dropping into, he's currently in the 7th round on Bulletproof, but I'm pretty sure he's dropped to the 9th round at least, based on this news. That is such a price that Trey Lance is going to be worth. But again, I don't know right time to buy, when to price the market. I'm just going to get in on Trey Lance now. I'm just getting in on Trey Lance now, and I'm going to ride it from there.
I think that's the tricky part, the right time to buy, because I'm with you in terms of I'm still a believer in Trey Lance. I think he's talented. I think the concern is like when you read like the Shanahan quotes that he's given about it, he kind of like jerks off Brock Purdy whenever he can. And like it feels like the locker room is kind of on Purdy's side. I do think Trey Lance can be
the locker room is not on Purdy's side though. I mean, like players like George Kittle are on Purdy's side, but Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel are on.
George Kittle's a pretty good person to have on your side of that locker room.
Yeah, but Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk, the wide receivers, like Trey Lance.
No, I know. I'm sure we're not going to talk about it. So I think that's the interesting part in terms of when to buy. Because unless you think a trade happens between now and week 1, you can get him so much cheaper. Or some point.
No,
like
because here's the thing: because Jordan Love,
he's a backup.
Jordan Love didn't start for years. It was a worse prospect than Trey Lance ever was. Does not have the rushing upside, and he was still around that value the whole time, like the current.
But that was because it was expected, right? When it was expected when they took Jordan Love that he was going to sit behind Rodgers for a few years. That was the plan all along. So no one panicked. Everyone's like, "Yep, I'm buying him. He's going to sit on my taxi."
That's the thing.
That's it. So now, but especially because they put so much into him, right? They put 3 firsts into him, or two, and it was a swap, right? So it was, and especially at the 3rd overall pick in the draft, it was an expectation. And now that he's come in and semi lost the job, sit a year, which is fine, right? Sat a year, took over as a starter, got hurt, and Purdy came in and led them to this crazy good season. Obviously, you're right. That team was just loaded. Great defense, weapons all around. He didn't have to do much, but that's fine. As long as they win the game, it doesn't matter the quarterback's stats. And that's the Shanahan point here, is that he doesn't care what your stat line looks like. He doesn't care, you throw for 50 touchdowns. He doesn't care you put up 5,000 yards. He just wants that W column to say as many wins as possible. And if who's going to give them the best chance of win, it might be Trey Lance. But Brock Purdy showed he could do it. He led them to 13 wins, 14 wins, whatever they had.
He was carried to 13 wins.
Yeah, he was carried to 13.
But it doesn't matter.
It's the same thing as Jimmy G. It's the same thing as Jimmy G. He didn't lead the team. He was carried to those wins.
The one thing I disagree with, though, because I have actually agreed with most of these takes here. I think they're all in line. Except JT, the only thing I disagree with is that I don't think Purdy lacks a lot of upside because this dude started playing quarterback his senior year of high school. Has like a handful of years to develop since then. Comes in the NFL and rapidly improved in 1 year. I mean, I was a big fan of that Iowa State team with Charlie Kolar, Breece Hall, and Brock Purdy, and he was nowhere near that good at Iowa State, right? He had some serious flaws, and he came in and really cleaned up a lot of stuff. I think he can continue to improve, his throwing mechanics and really, playing in the NFL because he played at the pace of the game, which is honestly the most important part. But that's the only thing I really disagree with. I do think that Trey Lance he's just worth it. 9th round of a start. Come on, 9th round.
Yeah.
You're saying he's outside the top on 100 players in the 9th round.
Well, yeah, at that point, he's not even worth a first-round pick, right? Like,
I don't think.
I mean, even the 8th round, even at that late first, like, dude, I might just rather swing on Lance than pick up like a Christian Kirk or I guess it depends on my build a little bit, but
you have to give up. This is the panic on Trey Lance. Ready? Trey Lance for a 2nd and a 4th. Trey Lance, DeAndre Hopkins, Kadarius Toney, and a 3rd. Okay, Trey Lance, DeAndre Hopkins, Kadarius Toney, and a 3rd for Russell Wilson. Trey Lance
for
and
Russell Wilson.
Trey Lance and Gerald Everett for Jimmy G and a 3rd. Trey Lance and a 2nd for Jared Goff. Trey Lance and I'm trying to get other one. Trey Lance a 1st and a 3rd for Kirk Cousins. The panic on Trey Lance has gone nuclear.
No, yeah, that's kind of insane.
Okay, JT, I'll give you 4 seconds.
I mean, dude, compared to some of those trades, JT, you're getting a fucking steal.
Yeah, that was a tiny overpay.
I'll give you 6 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. If Purdy's winning games, Lance won't last until the trade deadline. Because, think about it from what's the point of the 49ers just carrying Trey Lance on their bench? Like, I get if Purdy gets hurt, then you have another guy to back you in. But,
Sam Darnold
could do the same thing Purdy's doing, right? Sam Darnold is capable of doing the same thing Purdy's doing.
I still think Sam Darnold's a dark horse here, man.
Yeah. The thing, though, with the roster construction and everything, you would get a decent amount of cap off your books, right? You no longer have Trey Lance looming over Brock Purdy if Brock Purdy is your guy, right? You alleviate that pressure, and you're able to get stuff in return in which you can continue fueling your team based on what you just threw away, essentially. But I think this season starts with Trey Lance as the starter. I don't know how or why. I do believe Trey Lance will be the starter for the 49ers.
See, I have no hope for that anymore. I believe in Trey Lance, but I think it's going to be somewhere else.
But that's the value. That's the value is that you are almost guaranteed that this motherfucker plays a season.
Oh, yeah. Josh Rosen played another season. Josh Rosen, it was terrible. At least Trey Lance, we saw flashes, right? Like, we saw Trey Lance be good.
Yeah, so how many young quarterbacks that are starting do we see below the eighth round of a startup? It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No.
Or at least top pick kind of guys, right? Under 25, top pick. Obviously, Sam Howell's not up there, but Sam Howell's a 5th round pick, right? It's justified why he's below Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. Let's do the rookie report real quick. I guess, honestly, we could do a quick summarization maybe, or maybe have these guys move for you. I don't know how you guys want to handle this.
JSN, I was
let's
already
just all
really
take
high.
one and do a little spiel.
Okay.
I was
All right,
already
Lounis,
more
you
of
take
them.
JSN.
Huh?
You could take JSN. You already got started.
Yeah, I was already pretty high on Jays. I mean, not pretty high. He was always my undisputed wide receiver 1. He's now I think when you're not thinking about the QBs, he's kind of cemented himself ahead of Gibbs in rookie drafts for me. Not just because of this. I had always kind of been torn, and I think Gibbs is going to be a really good player. But I guess kind of watching some of the film and being reminded of it because it's route running, and I kind of went back and watched some of his Ohio State stuff the other day. Well, after I saw a couple of tweets of him, you have to remind yourself he was the best wide receiver in a room with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. I know people are gonna like
He
to
put up
throw.
600 more yards than Olave.
Yeah, like it wasn't close. Like, and I know people are gonna throw like the slot receiver stuff on him. People said kind of the same thing about Justin Jefferson, and that's why he fell in a lot of drafts.
20% of his production came in a game that the other two didn't play.
If you
that's
take out
something-
that game, he still has a couple hundred more yards than them, though.
Sure, but yes, but just not 600 more yards.
Not
And it was-
600, but still, like
I
don't know
love
if he's close.
JSN, but I'm just throwing out the stats that those two guys are legit NFL wide receivers that are both top 10 dynasty receivers right now.
I
If
think
not-
JSN's gonna get in the top 10 pretty quick.
I wouldn't doubt it. I love JSN, so I'm not really arguing, but I'm just saying, like, to say he's the best receiver in that room is a tough statement.
He was. I'm saying he was. I think by the time they come in the league, it'll probably be Wilson, JSN, Olave, with all three of them being like top 12 dynasty guys.
With this running back market, I think Gibbs is a must draft. I don't know. That's been a really contentious point for me. And I sided with Lounis in my draft when I had picked 5, I think. I went with JSN over Gibbs, and I would still do it simply because of the fact, and a large part of it was what Lounis said, but 4 years, I think that JSN, 5 years down the line, 4 years down the line, I am pretty confident that JSN is higher than Gibbs in dynasty rankings.
I mean, yes, that's just the nature of the position. Receivers versus running backs, obviously. I think Gibbs is going to be one of these guys that lasts a long time in the league. I think he's going to be Kamara-esque. I guess I'm just taking Gibbs now. But the Lions have been lining him up at wide receiver when he's not in the backfield. So I think he's a guy that's going to be on the field for 90+% of the snaps. Running back snaps is typically a big indicator of fantasy points and all that kind of stuff. So I just think he's a guy that's going to see a ton of snaps, ton of targets, ton of rushing attempts. We saw the draft day films from the Lions draft war room or whatever it is, where they would have taken him at 6. If they didn't trade back, they would have taken him there. They were worried he wasn't going to make it after they traded back. So I just think Gibbs is this guy that they have a lot of respect for and value in terms of draft capital and all that. I just think Gibbs is also, I think I agree with you. I think JSN 5 years down the road, no question will have more fantasy value just because of, receivers can play longer at a higher level. So, but I do think Gibbs is one of these guys that could be, in redraft, a league winner, in dynasty, a guy that, we've seen the last, 4 or 5 running backs to go in the top 10. We're talking Saquon, we're talking Zeke, we're talking Fournette. All of them in their rookie seasons finish as top 10 running backs. And I think both Bijan and Gibbs finish as top 10 running backs this year. So I think both JSN and Gibbs are set up very nicely moving forward.
Yeah, dude, the thing is that Gibbs probably is a better short-term pick. And maybe I should have picked him just to sell him a year later, but I didn't want to fall into the whole, because, dude, to be honest, I think Gibbs got way overdrafted, and I think he's just overpriced. I'm not as...
We were going to take him at 6. Did you see that video that came out?
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care where the Lions are going to take him. If I'm going to take draft advice from any team, the Lions are probably last on the fucking list. Actually, second to last. Give me the Browns first. Boom. I understand the hype. It makes sense. It might work the first year or two, but I just think JSN's fantastic, man. Those highlights that were coming out, he's really attacking those corners blind spots. I think he's a fantastic player. I'm taking the bait. The hype.
I'm gonna skip one real quick. Speaking of taking the bait, I think Quentin Johnston is the rookie of the year. He's plus 2,200 on DraftKings.
Rookie of the year?
Correct. He's plus 2,200 on DraftKings. Most of these teams that we see with the quarterbacks, right, they're not great teams. They're probably not going to get a ton of wins. We know that for quarterbacks, QB wins is like the the casuals kind of what they look for, right? So even if Bryce Young and CJ Stroud have a good season, but the team goes 5-12 or whatever, right, they're probably not going to get rookie of the year. I think Quinn Johnston is tied to Justin Herbert, who threw for almost 5,000 yards last season, despite being out for part of the year and having cracked ribs, right? I just think that plus the Chargers not having a 1,000-yard receiver last year, despite Mike Williams and Keenan Allen being there, I think we can see Quinn Johnston break into this top 3 pretty easily, be someone that is very productive, and win Rookie of the Year at plus 2,200. I really like those odds for Quinn Johnston. He's been just putting on highlight tape after highlight reel after highlight reel so far with the Chargers. He's got the drops thing like Jamar Chase had a couple of years ago. I'm just loving it. I'm all in on Quinn Johnston.
Oh, so you can use that card, but I can't for Jameson?
I co-signed you saying I don't care about drops. I literally said co-sign.
No, I know you did. What was I going to say? I'll hear you out on if you want to argue it's the best value at the odds. But, I mean, it's a bold pick. I'll give you credit if it ends up hitting. He's looked good.
He looked very good so far.
Yeah, I'll give you credit for that. I've seen more of him than Addison.
People were giving him flack for body catching. He's now catching, high pointing the ball and everything. And he's catching in stride.
He's in as good as the situation you can ask for too, for a rookie wide receiver. So,
what's it called? What's chat saying?
Wait, what is Bijan's odds for Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, what is
They're pretty low. They're like plus 300. I have to pull it back.
Really?
Is he number one?
Plus 275. Yeah,
Fuck, I might take that.
He's number one. He's plus 275.
What's Bryce Young at?
Plus 500. Anthony Richardson's plus 600. I would like to short that if possible. CJ Stroud's plus 850. Jahmyr Gibbs plus 1,000. JSN 1,500. Addison 1,700.
Take JSN, guys. The answer is
Johnson 2,200.
Plus 1,500 is pretty tempting. I like him and Bryce Young a lot.
I just think Bijan's going nuclear.
I mean, yeah.
Bijan might. Speaking of camp hype, I saw some of the catches he's been making, and people were saying,
I feel like
absurd.
Bijan's kind of a lock already, and this is kind of conservative for what, like 1,300 scrimmage yards, 1,400, like a lock.
Potentially.
Is there can I parlay Mahomes MVP, DeMar Hamlin comeback player of the year, and Bijan Robinson rookie of the year?
Let's see. I don't know if you're able.
You might be able to, depending on the sportsbook.
Jalen Hurts is taking it home, buddy. Sorry.
No, you can't. You can't parlay those.
It's not crazy. Jalen Hurts was in betting odds first place before he got injured.
Are you on DraftKings, JT, or FanDuel?
DraftKings.
I think on FanDuel you might be able to, because I'm pretty sure I've parlayed futures before in FanDuel.
I already have a ton of future NFL bets in, but mostly not awards. I mostly just have like division winners and like over/under on total wins.
Dude, the tough thing about I guess you can make the same argument for Rookie of the Year, but MVP I just feel like is always an injury battle, man. It's like,
yeah,
because it's like Rookie of the Year, Bijan can miss 3 games and still win Rookie of the Year.
Win it. No,
I think MVP that starts to get really dicey if you have a couple guys at the front.
It'll cook you. Yeah, one of my friends was furious from Temple.
Joel Embiid.
Because after week 2, he bet on like Jalen Hurts. It's still like it was after week 2. It was still like absurd odds, and then he was super excited. Like by week 14 or 15, I think Hurts had taken the lead over Mahomes betting odds wise. But then he had the shoulder injury where he missed like 3 weeks, and it was like 20 to win like an absurd amount of money.
Right.
On DraftKings, you can parlay those 3, Jake, for plus 4,000 odds.
Oh, that's it. Boo.
Well, DeMar Hamlin's probably like
he's minus 350. He's
minus 350.
Yeah.
Lamar was going to win MVP before Bateman got hurt. What are his odds? I don't know if that's a meme or not.
I did have Lamar to win MVP. No, Lamar truthfully did. He was near the top of MVP. Like,
what did I take? Like last summer before the season, I think I took Justin Herbert at like good odds.
Yeah, his
I don't need again for this year either.
All right, so last rookie report, Tank Bigsby. Apparently he's been doing really well. He's had a lot of long runs. Inside the tackles apparently is really where he's been excelling though. Are you guys higher on Tank Bigsby now than before?
I've been high on Tank.
It's more so if I have ETN, I'd really want him. Because I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that ends up being an elite handcuff. I think ETN's in line for a great year, but I think you're going to see a lot of it like receiving wise as well. But I guess it hasn't moved.
Well, like, is Bigsby jumped a guy like Charbonnet? Is it like that drastic for you?
I mean, I think that also helps by this Charbonnet injury not participating in camp. So like by one going up, one I think it's gone like that rather than one just rising above the other.
I can't go that far yet. I don't want to make too difference of my opinion on their backs just because of like a training camp injury.
Yeah, but it's not good apparently.
I agree.
It's bad injury, but yeah.
All right, that's the rookie report. Let's get into the AFC West over-unders. Here we go.
We still should have had Dak Prescott on the bad training camp stuff.
Oh my God! One bad throw and this man's being like.
All I'm saying is there's a video. Trayvon Diggs called him a bitch. How many franchise QBs are getting called?
I think Trayvon Diggs is so overrated.
I agree with that, JT.
Thank you.
The exact quote was.
I did not know he said that.
No, he literally ran up to Dak's face and said, "Shut your bitch ass up."
I'm gonna be really pissed when there is not a Diggs in the NFL. Like they just make it entertaining, right? They remind me of like the NBA players. They're just doing random shit, right? They're all over the place.
They remind me of just like WWE. It's just like, what are you doing?
And they're nasty, so they're fun to watch too. Yeah, so it's so fun.
Oh,
wait, guys,
if we look,
check your the Twitter group. I sent the Diggs clip. It's so funny. He just ran up to Dak's face and says, "Shut your bitch ass up." That's knocked down for me. If you're a franchise QB, you can't have the defenders calling you that. Like, that's crazy.
Oh my God, that's so funny. All right, let's get into this.
all right, we're doing the AFC West.
Oh wait, do we want to go over results from last year really quickly?
No,
I looked at them. There wasn't that many great. You did say that Josh Jacobs was underrated at running back 23.
That was the only really thing of note.
Jake said that Russell Wilson was underrated at quarterback 9. He's now quarterback 24.
Let's run it back, fellas.
Quarterback 5 or Justin Herbert? I guess I'm gonna say under.
I'm gonna say under for her, but I think that's the correct pick.
So we're split on Russell Wilson. Jake and JT on the Russell Wilson train. Me and Lounis off, which I'm surprised because I was for years one of the biggest Russell Wilson guys. I actually think it's a pretty fair price for him. But
he's not this bad. There's just no way.
He's not. The one problem I have from a dynasty perspective, though,
exactly.
I'd rather have Jordan Love.
I just think that Jordan Love's overpriced there, but I think that Russell Wilson is just going to be perennially stuck in the Mixon paradox or the Kirk Cousins scenario, and his days of ever being valued at a first-round pick are just gone. And
the issue with Russell Wilson is, aside from I think obviously he had a terrible year last year, but even if he bounces back and has the same year he had 2 years ago with Seattle, where he was a top 7 quarterback or something like that, he's 34. That's the issue, right? So he's now entering this age where he's riding off into the sunset eventually. And people just aren't going to pay first round picks for older quarterbacks. We've seen it before. You can get Tom Brady was playing at an elite level. You could get him for a second round pick. It's just what it is.
He's also a weird dude.
Yeah.
I'm out.
That part's true.
He's weird and he was ass. But it's just 0 for 2.
And yeah, he just he really lost the locker room last year. It felt like, I don't know. I can see why you would love him. And I did love Russell Wilson, but I think if I wanted a quarterback around here for points and whatnot, I'd probably rather pick up Aaron Rodgers for cheaper.
Aaron Rodgers is cheaper?
I imagine. Even if he's the same price, give me Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers
they're actually right next to each other. Rodgers is 36.09, Russell Wilson 35.47. Would you rather have Russell Wilson or Trey Lance? Trey Lance is 2 spots behind Russ. I think that's a.
Give me Trey Lance.
Yeah, I'd probably take Trey Lance, purely for the upside.
Looks like there's no one else really to talk about, and we're all kind of all.
Well, I mean,
this this division is very simple. Mahomes is good, Herbert is good, everybody else not so good.
Lost year in Mahomes' legacy. Book it now. I feel like it has to be injury for that to happen.
Yeah.
Wait for what to happen?
For Mahomes for this to be a lost year for Mahomes.
Kansas City running.
It would have to be an injury this year. Yeah.
I mean, Juju wasn't that great last year, and Mahomes still led the league in passing. I'm pretty sure.
Mahomes, no, he's a hack. The debate is for 2 through 5.
Yeah, Herbert, we're all gonna say underrated, right?
Like, I think though that's appropriate. I said underrated if I had to.
Yeah, 5 feels right.
But 5 because the 3 quarterbacks ahead of him.
Well,
okay, I think we lost Lounis, but yeah, I agree with what he said.
I don't know if I agree because he's quarterback 5, so there's 4 quarterbacks ahead of him. He's at the 3. So I disagree, but all right.
Math is not his strong suit, but that's fine.
Devontae is a weird one because I'm not sure how back he will be.
Oh wait, we're skipping the Raiders.
Who cares? He's overrated.
No, I've got a fat U on Aiden O'Connell.
I don't care about Aiden O'Connell. I don't think he's worth a roster spot. I'm surprised he even got drafted, if we're being honest. Watching him play in college.
Are we filling out? Are we doing running backs?
I'm doing running backs.
I don't know. Shadrach kind of wants us to do the receivers.
You get the receivers in a second.
We'll get there.
All right, let's go to receivers. We'll get there. We'll get there right fucking now. How about that?
No. Just continue with your running backs.
No, we're doing receivers.
We're going down receiver. Okay.
Executive decision.
I think this is a lot of overrateds in the receiver world. The wide receiver 63 is pretty crazy.
You putting eyes.
I am almost done. Devontae Adams all the way down wide receiver 17. All right, I'll kick it off. We'll start with the Chiefs because that'll answer the question, right? So he said, "Who's as good as Juju in that wide receiver corps right now? Who are you betting your life on going for over 900 yards last season?" I don't think you need players to go over 900 yards, right? Like, you're gonna have Travis Kelce, who's going to be over 1,000-yard receiver, probably, right? And then you're just gonna have a mix of like 5 or 6 of these guys giving you 600, 700, 800 yards maybe, and it's just going to be. I mean, maybe one of them does break out and ends up being really good, but I just think you're going to see a bunch of rotations from this wide receiver group. I think they're going to be carrying 7 wide receivers going into the regular season. So I don't think it matters with Mahomes, right? And Andy Reid. That being said, with the Chiefs, I still think Sky Moore is the lead receiver. So I think he's got the most room to shine. I think he was very good in college, had a not so great rookie season. But that's kind of how it goes with Andy Reid's rookies. Now he should get playing time. People have already been saying that he looks totally different. He's put into work. Obviously, that's what you're going to say, though, about someone who didn't have a great season before. But for some reason, I'm willing to confirm my priors and buy in. Kadarius Toney, on the other hand, he feels like someone that's just always injured simply because he is. His cuts just I'm a full-on believer that his cuts just are not sustainable, and that's what's causing his injuries. Lounis is back.
We're on the receivers now, Lounis. We skipped the receivers.
Yeah, and then the rest of the guys, whether or not Rice is good, it's just going to be the same thing as Sky Moore, I think. Like, he's just a rookie. I don't think he's going to break in. Justin Ross has looked good in training camp. I think he makes the roster, or whether or not he makes an impact this year, I'm also not sure, but he was electric his first couple years at Clemson. So I'm still willing to buy in on that hype. And then the rest of the guys I don't care about. I'm not even sure if they make the roster. MVS will make the roster.
I don't know. I kind of like Justin Ross, MVS, Richie James at their respective prices, just because. I mean, Richie James is almost like a waiver wire type dude, and I kind of like what I've seen out of Justin Ross in the camp now, right? Like his price is the same as it was last year. I do think that the news is better this year. He looks kind of acclimated to the team. He's getting reps with the first team now. If you wanted to give up a 3rd round pick, now I would do it for Justin Ross. I think last year is a little bit of an overpay given the scenario. And then MVS is going to play. MVS might play more than any of these other receivers, and he's priced as the 5th receiver on this team. So, yeah, I understand the argument of, he's been on so many good offenses. We talked about this last week. I'm willing to buy in at that price on MVS. That, to me, is too low.
I think the problem that you're missing, that chat's missing, is Travis Kelce, first off, did have 1,300 receiving yards last year, right? And then on top of that, you did have MVS had 700. The receivers combined for, the running backs combined for like 1,000 yards almost. You get it from different, like if the running backs are giving you about 1,000 yards, if Travis Kelce is giving you 1,300, 1,400, that's 2,400 right off the top, right? And then you just need 700, 800 from 2 or 3 guys, right? Like MVS could probably give you about 700. I think Sky Moore is going to give you a big jump. He'll probably give you about 700, 600. Who that third guy is, whether it's
Kadarius Toney will be on pace until he gets injured.
Yeah.
And then filling in will be Richie James or Justin Ross or Rashee Rice, whatever one of those guys ends up actually being.
So that's 2,300 plus about 2,200. That puts you at 4,400, 4,500, which I think puts you in the...
Boom, throw a couple hundred yards to these random McMandos that get some snaps, and we're there.
4,500 yards passing puts you top 5 last year.
And a Jody Fortinson, getting his 100 or so yards, and 1 or 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just spray around. Jody Fortson did have 108 yards. Justin Watson had 315.
Sneaky little Jody Fortson out there, right?
Noah Gray had 300. Like
Noah Gray had 300 yards.
Yeah, it all adds up. There's a lot of chunk change. That Mecole Hardman 297. McKinnon had 500 yards receiving.
All right.
It just adds up. So you don't need those 2,000 yard receivers to push yourself there.
Makes it easier, but
it does make it easier.
All right. What about the Broncos?
We skipped the Broncos?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just went to answer chat.
Broncos, I think we're all on board. Marvin Mims is underrated, which we already talked about Mims a little bit earlier on. Cortland Sutton, we are split on. Frank and JT said underrated. Me and Luna said overrated.
He's cool.
Yeah, I think he's done. I just think he's had too many injuries. I think he's done. I just don't. It's not worth it. Give me a late second and move on.
It's an interesting thought, to be honest with you.
I just think he's stuck.
I don't like. We're operating under the assumption that we're basing it off last year, which was such an anomaly and so hard to base off. You're still recovering from that ACL injury. I'm not willing to say Cortland Sutton's cooked yet. If the idea here is, Judy's going to have a bounce back top, wide receiver, pushing for a wide receiver one season because Shot and Payton's there, because Russell Wilson's going to get together, then I think you have to say the same thing for Cortland Sutton, who's so much cheaper.
It's not the offense. It's just he's cooked. He's done. He's had so many injuries in his career, and he's just lost a step. It's just what it is. And I just
like a Galladay situation.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be as drastic a drop off as we saw with Galladay, but I do think we're gonna see he's over the hill. It's just what it is. on the back end of his career. He's playing out this big contract that nobody really wants, and it's what it is.
Sutton has never been good. I mean, he put up like 1,100 yards that 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year.
Never been as close. I mean,
that's true. Galladay was like at one point a top 5 dynasty wide receiver.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yeah, Parker has a point.
Sucks. Dude, I am tempted to switch that to an O because, to be honest with you, in the league that I have Courtland Sutton, I might just mass offer him out to see if I can get a random second. And say, fuck it, bygones are bygones. I'll see you later.
I think you might be crazy because, like, Judy is just better than Mechie, right? I mean, on the Texans. I don't think the Texans wide receiver room is good at all. The Panthers wide receiver room.
He might be. Shredock might be talking about the Chiefs.
Yeah. Probably.
Oh, the Chiefs? Oh, that makes more sense.
The Giants
that definitely makes more sense.
Pretty bad too.
But the problem is, you put in Kelsey, and it's like, okay, you add like a top 5 target in the league, right? You know,
yeah.
Okay.
What else? Everyone else we've said is overrated. KJ Hamler, who just got cut, rip. Marcus Callaway, we've been through this Callaway hype before. Humphrey, whatever. Tim Patrick, rest in peace, my man. I was a bit. I would have put a big fat U on this one, but that injury now I just not even giving him either.
Yeah, no.
I still think he's underrated. I'll put him on my IR spot gladly.
He's good. It's just
his other injury was Achilles too, right?
You're talking about a guy that's going to come back and he's 30, coming off 2 back-to-back ending season in the preseason. What?
Yeah.
If he was younger, I'd feel better about it, but
injuries aren't real. Don't get.
I'm not a doctor.
All right, the Chargers. Quinn Johnston, we all said was underrated.
I think 21 is appropriate.
It's just.
I agree.
On Lounis' side, it's just worth the price of admission.
Mm-hmm. Mike Williams, we are split.
I've never been in. I'm a Frank. I think he's going to be better season than people realize.
Mike Williams, I'm going to make a case, is the most underrated receiver in the league right now. It's a complete overreaction to really not that bad of a season last year. Let me give you the list of receivers, at least in half PPR. I imagine it holds up in full PPR too, that Mike Williams outscored on a points per game basis. Brandon Aiyuk, Higgins.
Can I stop you for 1 second? Is this the stats that you were pulling up?
Hold on. No,
you're going to school us on Mike Williams? You're going to school us on Mike Williams?
Cool.
Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, and he is priced half of all these motherfuckers. This dude
don't care.
He was like tied for 21st, top 24 receiver last year. I mean, he's had that finish multiple times. I think this is the best receiving core in the league. They are locked and loaded with a fantastic quarterback. I just think it's wheels up for Mike Williams. You know,
combined games for Keenan Allen and Mike Williams over under 17.
Keenan Allen will play.
I just think that Mike Williams. Listen, Keenan Allen's great too, but Mike Williams gives you multiple wide receiver 2 level seasons, right? Keenan Allen,
the thing is, he'll never play all the games. I'm not going to bet on Mike Williams playing 17 football games.
But I would rather bet on a guy that has had multiple top 24 seasons than bet on my injury predicting abilities.
The Chargers just drafted Quinn Johnston to replace him. He's not.
Dude, I think they drafted Quentin Johnston just because how many years have because like Jake's point, right? One of Keenan Allen or Mike Williams or whoever keeps getting hurt. It is an older receiving core. Josh Palmer can't be the dude again. So bring in some talent.
I do. Chat was very upset with you saying that the Chargers have the best wide receiver core. I do agree with chat that they're not the best, but I do think they're top 5. That being said,
are they better?
Oh my god. There's no way Mike Williams is on the team after this season, by the way. I just looked at his contract. He has a $32 million cap hit next season. There is no chance he is on this roster
Yeah,
next
dude, you
season.
just do some restructure bullshit, and bada bing, bada boom, you're back under the cap as a contender.
doesn't matter. They don't need him. They don't need Mike Williams. Mike Williams was not the reason that the Chargers tick. Mike Williams does not provide a whole lot to this offense. And while he might have more points per game, I don't care.
I'm a Frank.
Don't care.
I'm pro Mike Williams.
I
Mike
just think
Williams
if you're a
is the problem.
contender, like I am in almost every league going to be inquiring the price on Mike Williams and seeing if I can pick him up for second round value.
Good luck.
Fine.
Good luck
Okay.
to you.
Who's next? Keenan Allen. He had 3 people say overrated. He's just getting old and getting
Yeah.
wondered.
The excuses made for Mike Williams, I think you can actually make for Keenan Allen. To the point
One
of
is-
Keenan Allen,
One is 3 years older.
sure, but one is just significantly better too. Keenan Allen can still give you a wide receiver 1 season.
Yes.
Mike Williams is not going to. Mike Williams never has. He's not going to now. Just, there's no reason to expect Mike Williams to now give you one. Keenan Allen still can if he's healthy. So I mean, for the price of that, I'm willing to get a wide receiver 1 season.
Y'all will
Sure.
gladly pay 9 firsts for Pickens and 9 firsts for this dude and
Nope.
7 firsts for this guy.
Nope.
Meanwhile, you
Nope.
could pay like a fifth of that and get the same production on just as good, if not better, of an offense in Mike Williams.
False.
Instead,
And
you
can
could go.
watch your guy
I
play
think-
more because he's always playing at
Instead-
425.
I think
Instead,
Mike
you could
Williams
just
is a good
get
buy.
Hollywood, Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins. Just go get those guys instead.
Right, I think Hollywood is terribly underrated.
Yes, he
Um,
is.
Mhm.
I agree with that one.
And they're all right around
day.
They're
Yeah.
all right around Mike Williams' price. So sure, like maybe you could argue DJ Moore and Michael Pittman and them are overrated, but there are guys that are right around Mike Williams I'd much rather have than Mike Williams.
Agreed. And then
That's
the
Jordan,
Raiders. Yeah,
yeah,
we all
Devontae-
agree. Devontae at receiver 17. I don't care how old he is. He's the only target on this team. I don't care about Jacoby Myers. I don't care about Hunter Renfrow. Devontae Adams is going to see 200 targets. It's just what it is.
It's gonna be even better when he's traded to the Jets. He's back with Rodgers.
Yeah, give it to about week 4.
So one thing I'll say is that I don't actually think Jacoby Myers is this expensive, this keep trade cut price. And another thing is, similar to an Antonio Gibson, yeah, the situation looks unfavorable. When you just look at his Pro Football Reference page, this is a good player. This is a easily top 50 receiver in the league, if not much higher. So wide receiver 62. And like, yeah, it's speculating a little bit. Like he was on a shitty Patriots offense, which may have inflated his numbers. But
That's
that's
more my
why he's priced
issue.
at wide receiver 62. That is the expectation, is that he's not a good player and the Patriots propped him up. I will gladly pay the price of admission to get Jacoby Myers because I think that he's not going to just disappear. This is a dude that's going to stick around for a couple years, and he might actually. This is a good player. Jacoby Myers is a good player.
I'm with you on Jacoby Myers, but because the Raiders kind of made the moves they made and went out to sign him, it makes me more. I kind of have more skepticism about Renfrow because I think what they went out and paid Myers to do, if you're the Raiders, you could say, oh, we could have just Renfrow do all that and spend that money elsewhere. That's it. Like, I'm with you on Myers, but that makes me kind of iffy about Renfrow.
Yeah, I could understand. Once again, like the floor case is almost the priced in for Renfrow. I will
And
gladly
I do
pay.
also recognize Darren Waller is no longer in the equation, which I'll give to Renfro's benefit. But
The issue I have with Renfrow is that he may have just been figured out, right? Like, sorry, dude, you just are not Cooper Kupp, and if I do a bracket against you, we're gonna shut your ass down. You just don't have that, whatever it is, probably athleticism, but whatever it is, you don't have it. You can't, and it worked last year. Teams just kind of shut his ass down. But he's just so cheap. He's so cheap for a dude who's put up 1,000 yards before. I have to put the U.
No, he's done. Another guy finished. See ya.
See ya.
Running
Jake and I are in lockstep here, and this is kind of scaring me. I don't know.
You know
We're
what?
not normally like this.
I'm also throwing a U on DeAndre Carter.
Why?
This offense is going to be a bottom 5 offense.
All right, I'm throwing the O back on DeAndre Carter.
Do you think he's worth the roster spot?
No.
No, not anymore.
Okay. No discussion.
It's going to take injury. That's why I threw the O back on him. I like DeAndre Carter. I think he's a decent player. I like what I saw out of him last year.
In a few leagues when he was on the Chargers, but in this Raiders team, no.
Yeah.
Running backs. Let's run this one.
Austin Eckler is tough.
Josh Jacobs is the harder one.
Oh, Jim.
Yeah, maybe a no there. All right, I'm just going to kick it off with the Broncos while you guys are doing that. We all think Devontae is underrated. He was running back 4 last year this time. Now he's running back 15 after an injury. Should take some time for him to fully ramp back up and see the Javonte Williams that we once saw. But I think RB15 in this running back world is way too cheap for Javonte.
His one good season, he's going to jump up into like the top 6.
Yeah, Frank, you're the only one that put an O for Samaje Perine, though. The reason I typically hate Samaje Perine, I hate that Zach Taylor used him in that Super Bowl the way he did.
He used him more than Mixon. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I baffles my mind to this day. The reason I'm going to put the U on him, though, is I think in the beginning of the year, we might be seeing more of a timeshare until Javonte fully gets up to strength. So, like, he's worth something, and that's it. The other guys doesn't matter. The Chiefs one is interesting.
Wait,
because
hold on.
Yep.
I hate this value for Samaje Perine. I actually might think about selling him now, even though I kind of need him on one of my contending teams. I mean, the fact that he's creeping up towards a 2nd-round pick valuation for a 27-year-old never starter, come on, that's fucking ridiculous.
He's still in the 3rd. I think 2100 is still firmly in the 3rd. No,
it's close. It's close to a late 2nd.
I thought it was in the 3rd.
Because I feel like Marvin Mims is closer to a late 2nd, and he's 2700.
No. Marvin Mims is now like mid to early 2nd.
Really?
Now that his price may not have actually fully updated, like fully accounted in for the injuries. I'm not really sure, but 2,700, 100% a 2nd-round pick.
So he's between a 2025 late 2nd and a 2023 early 3rd.
For the price of the 3rd, I think it's fine. If we're actually talking seconds, you could get a 2nd for Samaje. If you can mass offer a 2nd for Samaje Perine and you could get that 2nd for him, I'd 100% do that. But until that's the case, I'm going to say he's underrated. The Chiefs is the backfield that I'm most interested in because all these players are relatively cheap. Isaiah Pacheco being RB28, and we all saying he's overrated. The rest of these guys, though, it is just a question of who is the guy that's getting that share of the backfield? Who is getting the little Chiefs taste?
Yeah, McKinnon and CEH are the 2 underrated ones.
McKinnon, I don't know. I've seen
I like McKinnon, man.
Same.
I'm the only one who has him as overrated. I think he had a great. We just talked about it. He had like 500 plus yards receiving last year, in the limited time that he played with the Chiefs. I just don't know if he's going to recreate that magic.
I just think he's just like a reliable back, and Andy Reid respects that. He's going to catch his balls, he's going to pass block, he's going to do the dirty work, and he gets rewarded for it. I mean, Pacheco is the one that everyone's hyped up about. That's why we all have him as overrated. I just think CEH is done. I just think they swung at him and they realized this ain't it. So I have him as overrated, even at running back 59. I think I would sell him if I can get whatever. I don't want him. And I like what I've been seeing from Deneric Prince, at least from the camp hype. I know it's hype, and I don't want to buy into it too much, but at running back 70 for a 3rd-round pick, maybe a 4th-round pick, like, sure. If you're really running back needy, go for it.
I kind of like
I agree with you on everything, McKinnon. I like CEH at that price.
Right. So I think CH is a smash buy.
I still think he's the most talented running back on that roster. He's been getting first team reps in camp. Yeah, and his career's been like super weird, but at that price, he's like cheap now. That's
Yeah,
like
it's just too
dude, that's what
cheap.
it takes a mid third to get him.
And the fact of the matter is, going over the Mahomes segment, this is a team that's going to throw another 100 balls at the running back position. It takes one injury to a McKinnon or a CEH for all of a sudden the other one to probably dominate that target share. Dude, if that happens, that is RB1 level running back targets, right? Like high end RB1 level running back targets. Yeah, they're not going to get the carries on the back end to pull through, but I could pick them up 2/3. I get CEH McKinnon. As a contender, it's like, dude, I'm giving up late thirds for potential championship level production down the stretch, right? That's what McKinnon was. That's what CH can be with upside. Yeah, it's probably not going to work out, but I just think it's worth it, especially with how much they've thrown the ball at the running back position last year. That's the plan.
They already threw it over 100 times to running backs last year. I only see that number going up. So in agreement. The Chargers.
Anyone rostering Prince asking for a second to even begin negotiation after all this camp? Has he really been getting that much camp hype?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was getting first team reps last week, I believe.
Shit, I should try out for the Chiefs. I might start getting first team reps.
Yeah, I mean, I picked him up. Look, am I expecting anything from him? No, but he's a piece of the Chiefs, and he was free, so I'll take it and just see what happens.
Eckler's just another classic example of why this segment is annoying, because at RB12, that's a really good price to pick up an RB1 as a contender. But once again, he's just going to be worth significantly less next year.
Yeah, and it seems, I think you guys also saw it, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is going to be his last year on the Chargers. I don't know how he's going to look like once he leaves that system.
I mean, it's been a few systems, I think.
Yeah, but the thing is, too, he's a big fantasy football guy. He's about it. He's about
That's something we didn't consider when we were talking about the Chargers team. They've switched coordinators. Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, and the Cowboys passed the ball like the most in the league last year, or they were one of the highest passing.
I like Kellen Moore. He's good. I think Austin Eckler is if you were a contending team and you could pick him up this value, go ahead. You're just hoping you get a couple more seasons after this one. Mm-hmm. And I hate all of the backups of this team. I think they're all terrible.
They shouldn't be on rosters, I almost feel like. Because if Eckler does go down, I think they just pick someone else up.
Like, at least Isaiah Spiller has upside, and maybe he got better after a year. But, man, that is rough. I guess Austin Eckler's going to be on the field, like, the entire fucking season.
Yeah.
Then the Raiders, we all said, even Frank said Josh Jacobs overrated.
Once again, the problem with this segment is just that Josh Jacobs is just going to be worth less next year. But yeah, and I'm sorry, Parker. Like, Josh Jacobs is a fantastic buy. Like, we need to redo this segment to somehow incorporate points compared to value, because per value move, picking up Josh Jacobs is not good, but he is a great player to have in your team. The only thing is that holdout, though.
Yeah. Although apparently they were restarting negotiations. So.
Well, yeah, after that Saquon deal, Raiders probably instantly jumped on the phone.
That's true. Okay, then moving on to tight ends.
Wait, okay. real quick though. Jake and Lounis, you guys like Zamir White?
Yeah. I mean, I think I like Zamir White coming out of college. I think he's just, runs with a lot of force. I just think Jacobs, this holdout is going to carry into the.
I was going to say the Jacobs situation helps Zamir White.
I think he's going to see some playing time early on, and I think if he does anything with it, his value will go up. He doesn't even have to do a lot. He just needs to do a little bit, score a few touchdowns, and then if Jacobs comes back and he gets relegated back to the bench, no one's going to blame him for it. And I think, he moves up a couple spots this time next year, just because people have seen him be a reliable backup running back.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. The Jacobs
dude, it's tough, Shadrach, because he said Jacobs isn't necessarily worth less in a year at 26 years old. Like, Jacobs, just from the community's perspective, is not seen in the same light as a Nick Chubb was, and Saquon, and these other top finishing running backs. And that's what's tough. Like, I have him in a contending league. I ain't selling him. Like, I'm just gonna ride the wheels off of him. But it is also tough to invest in him after last year. Also, this price does seem a little high. The fact that you got to give up more for Jacobs and Eckler, I feel like they're basically the same fucking price. And not even this. Like, I feel like you could pick him up for just like a.
You're surprised that Jacobs is more than Eckler?
Yeah.
Oh, not at all.
Dude, I think Eckler's crazy, dude.
Yeah, I mean, just like in fantasy, because of all the catches he gets, I think when you compare them as like actual talents at running back, Jacobs is in a whole different league. Oh, did we lose?
Yeah, Jake has to bounce. He's got to go to sleep.
Okay.
All right, so we could just wrap up the rest then, right? It's just tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Dulcich. We all say underrated. Frank, are you with us?
Yeah, that's just. I think that's a mispriced by Keep Trade Cut. They kind of do the tight ends a little bit dirty.
They do. All the tight ends are undervalued.
No, I wouldn't say all of them because I have a lot of those.
I don't know, because I could see like Mark Andrews becoming the tight end one by the end of next season if Lamar is like healthy.
Or Kyle Pitts. Don't forget my boy Kyle Pitts.
I hope it's Kyle.
I'm thinking about putting a U next to Kelsey, but man, that's so expensive. But he's just so good.
He's amazing. And he's gonna finish the tight end one, like in terms of just end of season rankings. But I'm saying dynasty wise, I could see Andrews and JC mentioned Pitts. I don't know if Pitts is gonna happen with Ritter. I think Pitts easily. Yeah. I think he will be at some point in the next few years. I just don't know when.
The problem is Kelsey is like a late second, early third in startups, and the cliff's coming. And I don't like paying that price for what is at some point going to be the cliff.
It made me consider underrated for Noah Gray.
I don't care about Noah Gray. You and Jake had Gerald Everett underrated. I think he's like the fifth, maybe sixth option on this team at this point.
Yeah,
last
I know,
year he was higher and didn't do anything.
The Kellen Moore OC switch kind of made me like him more.
No, the thing is though is that they went from last year using multiple tight end sets to a dude who literally mained multiple tight end sets in Dallas. Like,
well, it doesn't need to be multiple tight end. He's the tight end one.
Yeah, but dude, I just don't think any of these dudes are viable now.
Yeah,
I think Everett, but that's it. At tight end 33.
It doesn't matter at this point. It's just I'd rather spend my value elsewhere.
I think Hayden Hurst gives you significantly more consistency than Gerald Everett does.
Let's put it this way: Everett had a career year last year, and he wasn't really worth it.
Yeah, but tight end 33. This isn't like 14, 15.
He had a career year and wasn't worth much. It's just the nature of tight ends. Like, I don't think he's going to beat what he did last year, and it's not going to matter. Like Skoll says, I'd rather just roster a backup running back than Gerald Everett.
A lot of backup running backs are worth more than him.
Man, I don't know if I get what to put it O or a U next to Kelsey, because it's just like. It's just so contextual. Yeah, if you're looking to win games, you keep him. If not, then you hard sell him.
Yeah, I think he's the sell.
I'll put an O. I've been doing that for all the old players. I got to be consistent.
The only other guy really is Michael Mayer. I always screw it up.
Yeah,
I say it.
I just think he's too good of a player. It's like,
yeah, and at his value, he's valued between the late first and early second.
I don't think we're going to see crazy numbers from him this year. I think.
No, yeah. When I say
tight ends take time. Yeah. I don't think he's going to really see a big boost.
I think he's just gonna stick around like a Muth, right? The guy who picked him up in the early second or 112 is gonna really like him. He's gonna put up just enough good games and a good enough season to where it's like, oh, he goes up a smidge, but he's still not worth like insane amounts.
You guys still believe in Trey McBride? I kind of want to send out a couple feelers for him.
It's going to be tough because you're not going to have Kyler there for a decent amount.
Apparently, he's going to be back like early. Like I think I saw one person say they think he's only going to miss like 4 weeks.
Okay, I mean if that's the case, fine. But Zach Ertz, I don't know when Zach Ertz comes back either.
Zach Ertz will be there.
Yeah, so it's going to be.
I still like McBride. The issue is if I don't have him on a taxi, that roster spot gets
you kind of want
cloggy.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
So that's why I find it tough to trade for him.
That's fair.
All right, big horror fan. But yeah, that's it from us. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you guys in chat. Love you. Always fun having you guys around, adding in some questions and some new flair and stuff. But thank you so much. Peace out. Have a good one. See ya.